Risk of Rain 2 launched out of nowhere on Steam on March 28th, catching everyone by surprise. The game's currently in early access, it's only been out for a week or so, and has so far seen overwhelmingly positive reception, which is an impressive feat by any game, indie or not. And it's important to note that this short review is a snapshot in time. A great deal of content and polish is going to be added to the game as time goes on, but I felt the game is already at a level of quality worthy of a mention, and definitely worthy of your money. So don't come back here in 7 months from now and say, Rags, that's not right anymore, they changed it. Because I will find you, and I will steal all of your left shoes. Chance for Precipitation Dose is a roguelike third-person shooter game, and by roguelike, I mean you go through a run of the game and go as far as you can manage until you inevitably die. After death, you lose your progress and restart at the beginning with your next run, unlocking certain persistent items and goodies that will carry on through runs. But for the most part, every run-through is its own little adventure. It can be played either by yourself or cooperatively with up to 3 other friends, which I will highly recommend. And the game has 2 modes at the moment. It has the Prismatic Trial, which is like a speed run of sorts where you attempt to beat the levels as fast as you can, and the regular mode, which will be the focus of most of your playtime, I would imagine. The objective of Potential of Torrent Secundus is simple. You land in a zone and must locate a randomly placed teleporter, activate it, and defeat the boss to proceed to the next zone. As you play, you will encounter enemies that you can slay for experience, which levels up your character and makes you stronger, and money. Money is restricted to the current run that you're on and does not carry over between zones after you use the teleporter. However, the money you do have will be converted into experience when you use the teleporter to enter the next level. Each level is littered with all kinds of different goodies, and these things are randomly generated as for their location and amounts, so you might encounter the zone multiple times, and you will go to the same place multiple times, but the placement of all the things inside the level will be largely different every time. Chests are scattered hither and thither and can be unlocked using money to gain items that make your character stronger, and money can also be spent to repair broken drones that will assist you in battle by shooting baddies, or they might heal you as you go. Each zone can have different shrines as well that are placed around the map. Shrines do different things when activated. The Shrine of Chance is essentially like gambling money for a potential item. The Shrine of Blood will cause large damage to your character, but will give you money as a reward. And there are other shrines that do different things, but you get the idea. An interesting mechanic to Contingency of Showers 2 is ever-increasing difficulty. Before you start a run, you can select from the 3 general difficulty levels, Drizzle, Rainstorm, or Monsoon, very thematic, and the game will commence on Easy. As time passes, the difficulty increases. Enemies become deadlier and more resilient, and the game will spawn more dangerous variants and higher frequencies. This ever-increasing in-game difficulty is based on the passage of time, not player progress. It doesn't matter how far you get or how strong you are. The game is constantly becoming more and more difficult, and this means you should not be idle and waste your time. You should balance the time it takes to explore every zone for its items and the time it takes to kill enemies for XP and money, with the understanding that the enemies will grow stronger the more that you do so. There are some persistent carryovers between your runs that you keep after you die. Certain in-game achievements will unlock items as potential drops during runs, and special currency called lunar coins are also persistent for your profile. Lunars are used to buy special zones or to get passage to extra areas or to buy powerful upgrades for the current run that you're on. The characters that you play as in this game are called the Survivors. There's currently 6 that can be unlocked and used at the time of this review, and there are more to come as development progresses. The Survivors have different strengths, health amounts, playstyles, and they vary wildly from one another, and each feels unique and interesting. And those of you who played Possibility of Deluge Uno might recognize familiar faces. Each survivor has varying attacks and abilities and capabilities, from simple pew-pew gun blast to laser beams to ice walls to weeaboo ninja dashes. All are viable, though some do seem a bit much, and the game will certainly balance them better over time. though at the moment it's certainly nothing too gameplay breaking. The survivor that you choose will have a big impact on the items and the upgrades that you try to gain along your run, as not every survivor will benefit in the same way from every upgrade. The Artificer, for instance, gains little from increased attack speed bonuses, since she uses abilities more than simple standard attacks, but the Commando gains an immense benefit from that very same attack speed buff, because he spends far more time shooting with regular attacks. Playing in cooperative mode will encourage you to communicate with your fellow survivors to distribute items and upgrades found in the levels to the ones who need it most, which adds a much-needed element of cooperation and teamwork to help the players all proceed to their strongest potentials as soon as they can. Unless you play with random people on the internet, in which case fuck you and the horse you rode in on, because damn it, I found this upgrade first, and even if it does basically nothing for my character, I'm taking it because fuck other people. So yeah, just play with your friends, please. And if you don't have friends, then you've got better things to do than listen to a YouTube video game review from Schrodinger's Furry. One of the most interesting aspects of liability of Torrent 2 are the items. Items buff your character in a wide variety of different ways, an impressive variety, in fact. An item might give you a chance to inflict bleeding, or stun, or slow down on enemies when you hit them. They might cause slain foes to explode, or drop health orbs, or reset your cooldowns. Items can increase your armor while you sprint, or increase your max health when you kill enemies. They can restore your health when you deal damage, or just give you extra jumps or block incoming damages. The effects of items, it really is vast. It will only grow larger as development continues and more items are added. But what's really extra nifty about collecting items in this game is that items will stack infinitely. As in, there's no limit to how many of an item that you can hold. So that energy drink that gives you a 30% boost to your sprint speed, yeah, those will keep stacking and stacking and stacking. The soldier's syringe that increases your attack speed by 15%, you can get 10 of those and now you're attacking at 250% your default speed. Not all items stack by the initial amount, but they will stack infinitely. So the Monster Tooth necklace that will spawn a healing orb when you kill an enemy. Yeah, kill an enemy. That's not the right word, Rags. Anyway, it'll heal for 10 HP on the first item, but it'll only add 5 hit points per stack after that. But again, you can have as many as you want, and they stack and stack and stack. So the game can get really wild. On one run, my character had 22 Lensmaker's glasses, so my chance to critical strike and do double damage was 220%. I also had an item that halved my health, but doubled my damage, so shit was cray-cray. There's even a Shrine of Order in the game that you can find that changes all of your items from one rarity into stacks of a single item, which can give you a single super effect that can potentially really make things wild. So, let's say you have 8 white items, common items, it will turn them into 8 stacks of a single white item that you have, etc., etc. And as mentioned before, some items are better for different characters. Many items apply effects upon hitting enemies, so fast-firing characters that hit more times than others, they're going to find many items far more useful. There's an item that, if you stand still for 2 seconds, for instance, it generates a healing zone around you, and it will apply to the Engineer Survivor's turrets. These can stack on top of each other, so putting 2 turrets next to each other and standing between them means you have 3 healing zones on top of each other, healing you and both of your turrets. Some items only appear after being unlocked by completing in-game achievements, which can be anything from defeating a boss in under 15 seconds to fully charging a teleporter without taking damage, and some are as simple as dying 5 times or defeating 3,000 enemies. But the more you play, the different items you will unlock for your runs. The enemies that you fight are quite varied, and they have a large span of different types of attacks that can be dodged, evaded, and avoided to different degrees of difficulty. Some enemies teleport around and try to hit you with melee attacks. Some will shoot fireballs at you, some have homing lasers, some charge towards you. And as you play the game, you learn which enemies are the most deadly to your character and should be focused on first. And you'll get more and more used to how enemies' attacks work so you can avoid taking damage for them as you play. And you'll learn to use your abilities against certain enemies more than others, and the more you experience the gameplay and the combat, the better you'll get over time, meaning you'll be able to push further and further into the game until things just get absolutely bonkers nutso. That's an intellectual video game review community term. Really galaxy brain stuff. As the difficulty increases, enemies can spawn as elites, which are basically more difficult variants that can have added effects like exploding when they die or applying burn effects to your character. Some survivors are better against certain enemies, so as you play, you'll learn what enemies will be the most dangerous to the particular character you're playing as, and learn how to most efficiently deal with everything in front of you. As you've seen from some of the footage here, the game can get really wild with enemy amounts and varieties and crazy numbers popping everywhere on the screen. And as this happens, performance, as you might expect, will get rougher. The more that's going on, the less frames you'll have, and I've never had a problem myself with the FPS getting too low, though there is a noticeable dip during really busy sections of playthroughs. The game doesn't really need higher frame rates, but more FPS is always better, and I expect the game will be optimized more and more as time goes on, but I would say that those of you with more budget-friendly machinery need not fear. Uncertainty of Condensation Katsuki is immensely appealing to me. It is great to play while you chat with people or catch up on videos in the background or listen to podcasts. It's a fun, engaging time sink of a game that starts nice and slow and then steadily builds up to a frantic, crazy battleground, and all of a sudden you're riding first class on the batshit crazy train to Fuckville. Stacking the right items up and maneuvering in combat wisely is the key to success, and the weak character you start out with eventually becomes a juggernaut of regeneration and destruction, all packed into one. Even in its infancy, I think this game is absolutely worth the money. It's a blast to play with friends especially, and more content will be added to the game as it's developed and supported. There are still secrets that I haven't found, and many things yet I have to unlock and even use. In fact, the game has an extensive logbook that you can use to check out lore-related info regarding items, enemies, survivors, and the zones you visit. And while it's not yet implemented into the game, certain runs can be given modifiers that will eventually be able to adjust a lot of the rules and the stipulations of what happens during the run itself. Because it's not really implemented into the game yet, I can't speak too much on it, but I have immense confidence that they will be very interesting to see as they roll out if the quality of this game as of now is any indication to go by. There will no doubt be a certain number of you. That's not a very useful thing to say. There's always going to be a certain number of something, isn't there? Anyway, some of you will not jump into the game, which is understandable because it is technically early access. But even if nothing else was developed in this game thus far, I think it would probably be worth the money. I think that I'll certainly get my time out of it, and the more that you play with your friends, I think the better it gets. So if you're not quite sold on the game, not everybody will be after one short review, look up some info on it, check out some more gameplay, put it on your wish list, keep an eye peeled for this game's development. Because I wholeheartedly recommend this game, and I'll be very interested to see all the new stuff that's added as time goes on. But for those of you who really enjoy action-based roguelike games, I think that you'll find a great deal of enjoyment with Risk of Rain 2.